Good afternoon, Guardians. Welcome to a very special annual edition of Tower Casuals, where we sit here and we break down the Destiny 2 showcase. Of course, I'm Josh, and joining me, as always, yearly tradition at this point, we got NerdGeneralist and we got A1 Johnnny. Gentlemen, how are we feeling? How are we feeling after that?
That was a dense case, baby.
Yeah,
That
so
was
I
thick.
want to jump in, and I actually want to start with you, Nerd, to cut John off before he starts screaming Titan Axe.
Damn.
He
Um,
Damn.
needs the axe.
I want to start with Nerd because Nerd, I think it's no secret of the three of us, you definitely played the least this past season and probably during Lightfall as well. Uh, did this do anything to shift the needle for you?
Yeah. Um yeah, I mean
Oh, I don't know if I
it,
believe that. Jesus.
well, I'm just still kind of processing what we've
Yeah,
what we've just gotten there. I mean, that was it felt like a really long showcase. Longer
45 minutes.
than the other ones potentially. I
Mm-hmm.
could be
Mm-hmm.
wrong. But it
Yeah, I
felt
No,
believe
longer.
they're
Witch Queen was
they're typically
30.
about 30.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, I'm still kind of just trying to wrap my brain around everything that I saw. I did not take notes. I just kind of wanted to experience it
Mm-hmm.
as it came out, and there was a lot of stuff they threw at us there. So yeah, absolutely. I'm definitely excited. I was kind of the most excited to see where we would go after the final shape, which we'll talk about
Mm-hmm.
that later, I'm sure.
Yep.
But yeah, I'm definitely stoked. I'm ready to jump back in. I've got my Xbox queued up, ready to download the update for Season of the Witch, and yeah, I'm ready to jump back in.
Yeah, and I imagine for somebody who's kind of sat out the last couple of seasons, not sat out, that's probably the wrong word, but like definitely played less. You still experienced the story content. Um, I imagine you were kind of looking to see what the immediate future looked like too, rather than what's coming 6 to 12 months from now.
Yeah, I mean for me it was definitely just I think a burnout situation.
Yeah.
So taking some time off, it gave me an opportunity to kind of reset the wheels and kind of play some other stuff. But I think Destiny and watching what they gave us there, we're kind of really moving the story forward, which for me
Hmm.
is the most exciting part, is seeing and progressing the main story that we've been watching all these years. And it seems like we're doing that now with this season and moving forward. So I'm on board.
Yeah. I definitely agree with that. Like after seeing this reveal, I feel like it's totally justified that they split Lightfall and the Final Shape into two separate expansions. But it also, like, after seeing how good the Pale Heart looks, it was like, oh, that makes like Lightfall look like, I guess, even lesser than we already thought of it. Like, cool destination, but the story, like you said, the story really didn't progress forward with it. We've done a lot of work. We did a lot of work in Season of the Deep and with Veil Containment, moving the story forward as opposed to the actual expansion, right?
Definitely a placeholder expansion.
Yeah. So that sultry voice you hear is our resident head of the Iron Lords, A1 Johnnny. John, I cede the floor to you. What give me just a gut reaction of what you saw there without only using the words Titan Axe.
But did you see the Titan axe,
I
Josh?
did see the Titan Axe as soon as I saw it. My phone lit up. I got Discord notifications, and then I had friends texting me. They're like, "Oh boy, John's getting an axe."
It's a one-off super. It's a range super. It's an ad clear super, all in one. I'm so excited. But no,
Oh, we're gonna talk the new supers in a few minutes. Overall, how temperature check, John? I know you and I tend to be a little bit more positive about the state of the game.
no, I'm excited to see what's coming. I'm really interested to see how these episodes play out. Bungie, almost to a fault, is so good at hyping themselves up with these showcases and trailers that sometimes we can build up our
Yeah,
own expectations too much. But them saying that these longer episodes are going to be beefier than the seasons narratively and have these kind of 3-act beats every 6 weeks. I'm really curious to see how that plays out. I hope it's a more engaging experience long term. because you and I are whores. We're going to be playing no matter what, right? But it doesn't mean we aren't left
Yeah.
wanting sometimes, even when Destiny is in a good spot.
Yeah, this kind of feels like a return to, and it's something you and I have talked about extensively over the years. It kind of feels like a return to the Forsaken storytelling
Yeah.
with, but like taking the lessons that they've learned since then.
Yeah.
It kind of feels like we're taking the best lessons that we've learned from the seasons, especially post arrivals, right? Like we talk about low points in Destiny 2, and the first two that immediately come to mind are Curse of Osiris and Worthy. No matter what you think of the current state of the game right now, like the narrative is still good, the activities are still good. It's just that we had like 6 Game of the Year contenders come out in the last 8 weeks,
Yeah.
and
And
the real competition for the first time in years.
yeah, no, it's funny. I mean, I still hit like level 157 in this last
Mm-hmm.
season, but it's still the least I've played since I got back into the game in
Same.
opulence. And it's not because Destiny bad, it's just because Diablo and Baldur's Gate were so good that instead of grinding Crucible and Grandmasters and raids after the season was otherwise over, I was playing other stuff. But no, I'm really excited, and I hope that Bungie can shake things up so it's not just log in on Tuesday, play a seasonal activity, get 15 minutes of narrative, and wait till next week. I hope we can get away from that.
I totally agree. Totally agree. Well, I mean, let's get on into it, boys. The all the pages are going live on Bungie.net, so I'm pulling up all my links right now. Oh boy. So I guess just starting at the beginning. I mean, we'd be remiss if we didn't talk. The pre-show it wasn't a bunch of community art like John and I thought it was going to be. It was the key cutscenes that we've had over the years. I did find it hilarious that they skipped straight over Rise of Iron, like it never happened. They did like all this stuff for Destiny 1 and then just we're
They're
gonna leave Rise of Iron
they're
there.
just trying to keep the Siva simps at bay. Really, they don't
I
want the rise
yeah,
of Siva to happen again.
that's about what I'm feeling right now. Man, Jesus Christ. And then it ended with an in memoriam for Lance Reddick, of course. We're not gonna dwell too much on him. We talked about Lance on the show a couple weeks ago with the news that Zavala will be recast, presumably for the final shape. They haven't straight up confirmed it, but I can't imagine that Keith David is not Zavala in the final shape at this point.
Yeah, that did get me more so than seeing Cade in action again, which of course we had that big reveal a few months ago. But that did catch me in the feels watching this. That Lance won't be there for that reunion, right?
Yeah, and I mean, like Corey and I talked about it, and like we're both clinging to the hope that maybe a couple lines were recorded. They said any recorded dialogue would still be used, and
Yeah.
kind of clinging to the hope that maybe him and Nathan were able to record a few lines. But I imagine if they had, they would have said it.
Yeah, I know one of the seasonal writers reached out and said that was Lance's last thing that he worked on, but he said
Yes.
very clearly that he doesn't know what else he could have been doing. He's just on one of the 2 seasonal teams. So, who knows? Maybe they did already get his VO for final shape, but that would be pretty
But
far
at
ahead.
least some, yeah.
Yeah. I do have some troubling
Um,
news real quick before we move on. It
what's your
appears
troubling news?
Season of the Witch is a book series and a really bad looking direct to DVD Nicolas Cage movie, so I'm having trouble Googling.
Oh yeah,
That's
I
right.
was waiting to see if anybody was going to notice that.
It's also a song.
It's a very bad Nicolas Cage movie.
Oh man, this is the
Um,
crossover we've all really needed. We need a
I
Nicolas
mean,
Cage season.
look, if he can show up in Dead by Daylight, there's no reason we can't get 3 different Nick Cage skins in the Eververse.
I want the one from the Massive Weight on Unbearable Talent. That's the Nick Cage that I want.
That's
I
is
either
that
need
the
him
Hunter
there
Nick
or
Cage?
I need Leaving Las Vegas Nick Cage.
We can get Dracula Nick Cage for Warlocks.
Yeah, sorry for anybody who's too young to understand the Leaving Las Vegas reference.
Ask your parents.
Don't Google it unless you're over 18.
Breaking news on the seasonal page: Hunter exotic grenades that you can turn into hive moths.
Uh,
Yeah, I saw something like
okay.
that in the
I
gameplay footage. I picked that out as something I wanted to call out. That looks awesome.
Oh man, there's so much good shit here, guys. Let's go ahead and jump into it. We start with the trailer for the final shape, right? And of course, Bungie doesn't miss with these initial trailers. And Ghost is narrating it. It's very much from Ghost's perspective, and Ghost is kind of following Fire Team of Guardians throughout the years. I saw Max making a comment in the thread you and I were in, John, where he was like, "Oh, I kind of dig the Hunter armor," and I want to be like, "Yeah, that's the original D1 Hunter armor
Yep.
that you're talking about." But by the time I was about to say that, they had already changed it to another one, and it's this whole theme of like every Guardian coming together, right?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's perfect because Ghost's line was literally the first line in the game. That's how you started.
Yep.
Yeah, R.I.P. Dinklebot.
Yeah,
After he goes, after all these years, we never talked about it. Why I brought you back, why you were chosen. The truth is, I didn't know then. This fight might be our last. So I'm asking you one last time to rise. It felt very Dark Knight Rises, where they just kept chanting
Mm-hmm.
"Rise" in the trailer. Is Christopher Nolan involved in this or what? Uh, this was awesome.
yeah,
This was a really cool trailer that didn't really tell you a lot about the story. They're very clearly keeping the story under wraps. We know we go into the Traveler, as our friend Joasis would say, into the Travelussy.
yeah.
Um, we go in there and they're calling the destination the Pale Heart. This is unlike anything they've ever done, but the typical marketing speak that we get. We've never done anything like this before, but it really does genuinely feel like, oh shit, we probably haven't done anything like this before. It's made up of the experiences we've had collectively as Guardians. And it's a linear destination. That's probably the most fascinating part to me. Is
Yeah,
while
that
you're in the
stood out
campaign,
Yep.
it's
big.
Yep.
linear.
What does that even mean? I'm very curious to see how that plays out.
Yeah, I
Not
kind
in
of
a
wonder if it's
negative
going.
way, you know.
No, I almost wonder if it's going to be a bit of a shorter campaign compared to other ones. And they keep hammering home this theme of we need everyone. I'm expecting something wacky for this raid. Because you can't even explore the destination until you've beaten the game.
12-man
Yeah.
raid, perhaps.
That was
Man,
my immediate thought when they said a linear path. Is I feel like you're going to be going through a curated experience in that space until the
yep.
campaign's done, and then it's a normal open world, land to
Yeah.
different zones and drive your Sparrow around kind of thing, instead of just Sparrow from place to place to click on a banner to start a mission.
Well, they made it very clear that this was going to be a heavily curated experience from an art perspective, and that
Mm.
like
Mm-hmm.
they had a very clear vision with what they wanted and how they wanted the players to experience it. So yeah, it does seem like it's going to be very linear for a reason, and that's kind of cool.
Yeah, I like the idea of a linear experience for the campaign too, right? Because I think it makes it feel much more personal. I'm really hoping, with us leaning into these themes of, like, oh, we're bringing everyone together. And, they showed it in so many of the shots and so many of the still images that we get. The key art is showing it. I'm really hoping that we get some more of those levels like we did in the Red War,
Mm-hmm.
where there were other Guardians in certain areas that we were in the story. And then, for example, like once you jumped through the Vex portal, that was it. You were on your own in Homecoming, right? I would love to see things like that because I think that made the universe feel more lived in.
Yeah. My big question is: are our allies going to be following through, not just the Vanguard? Are we going to have our Cabal and Fallen homies? They're fighting with us.
I would
And
lean
Cato's
towards.
coming through the Travelussy with us.
I'm gonna lean towards yes, considering how much Keitel and her guards were involved in that final mission of Lightfall.
Mm-hmm.
When you're out in the courtyard.
Yep.
Mithrax finally going to bring his Kel to the light, baby.
Oh man, I'm really hoping that Mithrax is a guardian for this. I'm really hoping. I'm holding out hope. That's the one final thing that I need from this saga is for Mithrax to be a guardian.
But before we move on quickly, I obviously, I didn't think we were going to get a whole lot of story reveal because that's,
Yeah,
this is a very special crafted once, like they brought it up at the beginning of the showcase, as developers, you don't really get to wrap up a 10-year story very often anywhere in the industry.
right.
So I wasn't expecting too much that way. I am glad that we are not getting a whole new darkness subclass this time around.
I'm actually relieved. It's funny. Nerd and I were talking about this literally yesterday morning. We were talking about this. There was a fake leak going around. Imagine that. Uh, I've long been a believer that we were going to get a third darkness subclass, and I just didn't know how you would balance that.
Yeah. Not that
And
we can't in the future. I just feel like this story is too
yeah,
important to muck down half of it with a learn how to wield X new power
yep.
montage again.
And I think they
Yeah.
understood that too. I will say, Conspiracy Josh is coming out. Put the spin foil hats on, gentlemen.
Uh-oh.
I do think that there was one planned, and it was scrapped when they had to bump Strand from the Witch Queen to Lightfall.
Mhm. Yeah.
I do, because that would have had you would have had 2 years between Strand and like what we long theorized was going to be Resonance.
Yeah.
I am holding out hope that they will do another subclass in the future, but I do think it's going to come down the line. I think that they're going to save it for an important story beat in the next saga, which is good. I like that we're going back to the original 3 subclasses here. That you're in the Traveler, you're getting amplified. Do we think we're getting more than just these 3 supers, though?
I wouldn't be surprised if we don't.
Yeah, I could
Obviously, it'd
kind
be
of
awesome if it was
order.
like a Forsaken. There's 8 new
Mm-hmm.
supers in the game or 9 new supers in the game, but that if only giving us new toys for each of the original subclasses and they're fleshed out and fun, I would prefer that over mediocrity, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah,
For me,
I agree.
that's the big thing is just tuning and making sure that whatever they do add, especially because a lot of the light subclasses are in such a good place right now, to make sure that those things are tuned, make sure that they're they actually serve a purpose. Because one of the things I fear is that a lot of the support, and I'm using finger quotes here, support items and support things that get added to the game usually fall by the wayside in favor of higher damage and just how or
Mm-hmm.
survivability. So having support things, I want to make sure that those things are actually meaningful and useful and have a place in gameplay rather than just being like, oh, this is just a thing we're putting in there.
Yeah.
I will say I enjoy that we're getting the subclass. Well, for Hunter, or not Hunter, for Titan and for Warlock, I really appreciate that we're getting Void and Solar supers for them, because those are the support classes, right? I appreciate that we're getting it there. Hunters, I won't say I feel underwhelmed, because I do think it's a really cool super. My problem is we just got a brand new Arc super a year ago, and that's a really awesome super. It's one of the
Yeah,
best
it's like
supers in the
Arc
game.
Blade 3.0, it's
That's the only thing I was like, oh god, of course we're going back to Arcblade. Like, Titans get this awesome axe, Warlocks are gonna be bam, 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 bam. Like, the pyro from the original X-Men trilogy on crack over here, and then I get to blink and stab things.
I will
Yay.
say the Hunter one definitely seems the most PvP oriented, right?
100%.
I
100%.
mean, starting a round of trials with your whole team amplified sounds wild. That uppercut move or whatever that made the whole team amplified, that's going to be
Yes.
crazy for making pushes and
I
plays.
I would also say that like it really depends on what's like the interval between when you have to cast like one iteration of that, because they said you get
Mhm.
3 of those blink and attacks. How cool would it be if those were like you had a decent amount of time that you could traverse the map a little bit in between each one of those, and it's not like they have to be in quick succession. That
Yeah,
might be pretty sweet.
and who knows
I'm
how
pretty sure
exotic.
you'll have a little bit of time to move. And like John said, I do feel like that's definitely a PvP move.
Yeah,
I
they
don't
gave
see
you the
myself
highest damage super, like triple
right.
fold with the
Well, and
dancer
that's
bow
why I'm
stuff.
not too that's why I'm not too upset about it. I do think of the 3 classes, I feel like Hunters are probably in the best spot super wise. We have support supers and we have offensive supers on every single element now, after waiting
Mhm.
so many years for Arc to be viable.
Yeah, the rogue class finally is DPS king. It's good to see.
I fucking love it. I'm a rogue at heart. For everybody who doesn't know, I play a hunter. I play a rogue in D&D. This is near and dear to my heart. I love the Blades fantasy though. I really do. Even though I'm a rogue that uses a bow. I am stoked for this. All three of these do look really, really good. They took a lot of time and care into doing these. And I'm glad that we're getting traveler powers. It makes sense. In the context of the story, it makes sense that we're getting these.
Yeah. And, who knows how new exotics will play with these. And there's also new aspects and whatnot, not just a new super.
That excited me too. Support aspects really excites me. Like there's new things to build into, and I'm
calling it
very
out. People are going to be
So-
pretty mad about that Titan shield that you can put up
Dude,
by eating your grenade. PvP.
I've
People are
been
gonna be mad
waiting
about
for
that.
I've been waiting for a shield bash for Titans for so long, like an actual like guarding, and then boom, you just repel that energy out. So this is like that's what I was waiting for Titans for so long.
Yeah, I love that because I love the big banner shield super, but it's not very useful in anything. So I can kind of play with that fantasy without dedicating my whole super to it. If that makes sense.
I love the axe, and I like that they clarified that you throw those three out and anybody can pick them up.
Yes, that is
really exciting to me as a skinny hunter. To run around with a big ass axe is really exciting.
Salad man, you're not the only one anymore, buddy.
I mentioned that I play rogue characters in just about everything, including in Skyrim. I run around with a bow and a broadsword. When I'm sneaking, I stab people with a fucking longsword. It's great. This was unexpected though. Like all of these were unexpected, and yet at the same time it made sense. Now it makes sense why they made those changes to swords a couple years ago and said that, or like last year I guess it was, and said we're doing this for anything you can wield in third person or in third person in the future.
Yeah.
So this makes a lot of sense, like both with this and with the new relic mode. I want to steer us back to the expansion just a little bit. Man, the subjugators. We've long wondered if there was going to be a darkness race that we would have to fight, and I think the approach that's been taken here is actually a lot more creative between the subjugators and the tormentors.
Mm-hmm.
You can't just they're bullet sponges. Like no, there's like actual mechanics to beating these guys in the open world and in the campaigns. I low-key love that the subjugators have strand and stasis powers.
Yeah, they're going to be great with crowd control, which is going to be...
It's going to be so annoying, dude. I can already feel the stasis locking me in place and then getting one-shotted by some kind of sniper in a Grandmaster. It's going to be horrible. In a good way,
It's going to be rough. The legendary campaign is going to be a trip.
And they've all got floofy shirts, too. Not only are they going to be smacking us from the back line, but they're going to look really fancy while they're doing it.
Yeah, they're mini Rolks. So if the Tormentors are mini Nezis, these are mini Rolks. I like it though, and I think that it's a creative way to get more enemies in there without having to create a whole new race, because it's like at this point, how are you going to make a race that feels different from everything else, but like this is like kind of the last one that they would be in. Like it doesn't make sense beyond that. It makes sense to like let the episodes continue the stories of like the Hive and the Scorn.
I'm really glad that over the years they've decided to focus on building one specific enemy like unit rather than focusing on adding an entirely new race or an entirely new like style of enemies. Not to say that the Scorn and then what else did we get? I can't remember, but the Scorn come to mind. Yeah, that like rather than getting like 5 or 6 of the same type of units just reskinned that have like slight twists, we're getting something that's completely different. I think that's been a good approach over the years now.
I agree. I think that it's been a good idea, and like similarly, I think giving some of the enemies stasis powers over the years has been a good idea as well. And like even the Cabal getting an overhaul to drop those resonance shields and whatnot, it makes even rank and file more deadly to fight against. You actually have to kind of think about it in the more difficult content. It's not just, oh, I'm gonna blow through with holding down right trigger on Chroma Rush and just mow down this whole line of enemies. That doesn't work anymore.
And making, engaging mini bosses that aren't just champions, always welcome.
Yeah, I mean that's been our, I think, one of the biggest complaints like for years now has been we want engaging enemy types. Just throwing a champion mod on it doesn't make it engaging. This is actual mechanics, and I don't have to have a specific build to do it. I don't have to run double primaries to kill these things. So I enjoy seeing that. I like it. Um, let's talk about some of these exotics that they mentioned though. Sandbox team talked, and some of these sound absolutely wild. The Tessellation exotic fusion rifle. It's available today if you pre-order the expansion. I wasn't going to pre-order it. Now I kind of like need to because I really want to play with this fusion. I'm paying $100 to play with the fusion 6 months early. That I'll probably use twice and then throw on my vault. It's awesome. This thing is awesome. It adapts to whatever you are currently using, whatever element you are currently wielding is what it goes to. The exact description on the website, and this thing looks absolutely bitchin'. This is one of the coolest designs they've ever done. Purpose carved from meaningless, the chance generation of the universe crafted into beauty intentionally. That which served no reason ceased, randomness elided by the sculptor's art. This thing is an absolute monster. But as cool as this is, and I know John's gonna make builds based around this entire thing. Yeah, we all remember when Traveler's Chosen came out. Can we talk about the Golden Gun Sniper?
Yes, that piqued my ears. That sounds cool as hell.
That what it instantly reminded me of was the explosive snipers that we buy in Fortnite.
Yeah.
That's what instantly brought to mind for me, Dragon's Breath snipers. So I was like, oh well, that's really cool.
Did they give us? I must have missed that part. I must have looked away for a second. Did they tell us kind of like what the trait was like on that? Because I heard them say golden gun sniper, but was that kind of all we got?
Yeah, they just showed an image of a really cool.
Yeah, we saw the concept art.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
yeah.
I imagine they want to keep the functionality of most of these under wraps until the game is actually out, but they teased a lot more exotics than they normally do.
Yeah, they did.
A gun that shoots traveler beams.
That thing looks fucking wild. That gun, like, and I felt like I kept saying that every time they showed a gun. I was like, "That's fucking." I would imagine it's a trace. I don't know what else it would be. A heavy trace rifle.
That's what I was thinking. It definitely looked like a heavy weapon. It was big.
Oh, listen, I actually would not be shocked if that was the raid exotic.
The Traveler's
I'd imagine it'd work more like Thousand Voices, a charge and a burst, as opposed to like one just continuous beam.
I imagine it being like a portable Moira beam.
Yep.
Yeah. We all need to take down the Witness now using Traveler beams. We got to cross the beams.
No, you never cross the streams. No,
we're crossing the streams. We're doing it, baby. We're doing it. And then the reveal that we're getting 3 more classic D1 weapons back. I have to think this is the final batch.
Yeah.
Because it's 2 of these are ones that have been asked for years. And it's, of course, the classic Kvostov. We can't go into the final showdown without the beginning weapon.
And talk about the most craftable exotic ever, right? Like that's just screaming to be crafted with whatever perks you want on it.
It's gonna break the fucking game. Red Death, which I'm very excited for. Red Death and Dragon's Breath is coming back as well. Dragon's Breath, the lesser man, the poor man's Gallarhorn, as we called it in the original Crota days.
Yeah. I'm assuming it's going to be really fun to play with, not viable for damage, so we are to use an exotic heavy slot on. But hey, I'm glad to see it. Looks cool.
Yeah, I mean, so that's 6 exotics that they briefly talked about, at least. We definitely got the most on Telestation, and then they, briefly showed us the art for the Golden Gun Sniper and the Traveler Beam, and the other 3 just got mentioned. The 2 of the new weapon types, rocket pistol sidearm. Immediately, I was like, "Oh boy, there are custom games streaming to be played with this."
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how viable this is going to be as a weapon, but it sounds fun as fuck.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I'm all for goofy guns that feel like you're living the fantasy.
Yeah.
We are living 1,000 years in the future with
Well,
space magic, and we're still running around with AK-47s.
they said that gun was going to get a weird mix of sidearm and rocket launcher perks. So, like,
Give me
Oh my god!
what
bypass.
does
Do you
that
think it
even?
works? Do you think it
What
works
does
with
that
Wolfpack
even
rounds?
mean? Oh,
Well,
that would be
I don't think
sweet.
he didn't say perks. It was traits. So like your stats on your weapon. So it's going to
Oh,
have
okay.
like blast radius and velocity and stuff
I
like that.
misheard.
Dude,
Okay.
impulse amplifier though,
Yeah.
man, this could impulse and explosive light. Again, my biggest question now. I didn't think about this during the reveal. Do these rounds work with Wolfpack rounds? I think
I
that
don't
that could
know.
be really cool. You see, like all these little stingers coming out.
Yeah, I'm excited to
That'd be
play with
sweet.
them. If it's balanced like the smart pistol we got in Lightfall, I'm not worried about it for PvP because
No,
you have to be so close to lock on with it. I'm hoping that's how it works, and then that's just my biggest
yeah,
fear with something like that. A sidearm with
100%,
tracking rockets
100%.
on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely a concern for me as well. And I would think they would have to they might
Yeah,
tie it to like heavy ammo or something. Who
yeah.
knows?
But
Yeah.
they said it's special. But
Oh,
yeah,
okay,
like I
okay.
said, they
I
nailed it
definitely
with the
missed that.
smart pistol. I was worried about that too. And then you get in, you're like, oh, you have to be so danger close and then wait a second for it to lock on anyways. That other than a few cheeky around the corner kills, it's pretty much not a viable
I
option.
imagine it's gonna be like they'll make it to where it's next to useless in PvP,
Hmm.
but it'll be a lot of fun in PvE.
Yep.
Especially like in horde modes, I can see this being a blast.
Yeah.
Let's talk about this auto rifle though, because this screams John and support class.
Oh yeah.
Support frame auto rifle, which can shoot enemies and you can heal your allies.
I'm very
That
excited for this as an archetype.
not something that I had on my bingo card, but I guess we probably should have seen this coming after. Oh God, what's the name of the trace from Ghost of the Deep? Navigator.
Navigator.
The
After
Oracle gun
Navigator, this was kind of like the next logical step, I guess. I just didn't expect it from an auto rifle.
and a legendary. Like that's just a
Yeah.
type. That's just a
So
type of auto
I'm
rifle.
I'm definitely okay with it being a legendary because we've seen when they introduce new types of weapons, they don't overload us.
Yeah.
They kind of let them trickle in.
And there's
So I'm
lots of design
hoping.
space for exotics to pair with it. You get XYZ benefit when you heal, a
Yeah.
teammate.
Yeah. Oh, I'm interested to see like what new perks you can introduce with that. What they look like when they're enhanced. I am hopeful though with introducing with between these and the new pistol archetype that kind of gets us more away from like everything we've known for 8 or 9 years now and gets us more into the wackiness. Gets us into the space magic and like we stop caring so much about if it's not a 120 I shan't be using it, and it's like, hey, this gun's really fun, I'm gonna use it. Like I care more about fun than like
I
the
mean,
optimal stat.
I mean, I think the biggest holdback of these things over the years has been, the wacky guns and like the weird experimental stuff has always been tied to your exotic. So like
Mhm.
having that kind of break out of that mold and break, I guess, more of a prison, and having that be something where like, okay, I can have a weapon that heals somebody or has a support role, and then also still bring my big ass rocket launcher or my trace, bring sleeper simulator, something that does like heavy DPS. Like
Mhm.
I think that does lend itself to some more interesting play styles, because like before you wanted to heal people, okay, you're throwing on Lumina and then that's your exotic, you're kind of screwed in that respect
That's
if you
true.
want to bring something else. This kind of opens that up a little bit, so it might actually help.
That's true. That's a good catch. I didn't think about that. I do we have any other thoughts on exotic weapons or archetypes? Because if not, we got to talk about everybody's favorite Vanguard member. We can't go any further talking about this expansion without talking about Cade.
Nope.
Any weapon thoughts, Johnny?
No, I'm
Okay,
just excited to jump into see what this season brings, but I'm sure we'll
we
get to
we, we
the
can we can
seasonal
hear the
reveal.
music.
I'm trying to turn it off. It's me.
Oh, I didn't know which one of you it was, and I didn't want to call anybody out, but I could hear the new music in the background. Like, God damn it!
Yeah, no, there will be lots of thoughts, but honestly, without being able to see
Right,
the perks and the
right.
stats and play around with them, it's hard to do anything other than
Let's
speculate. But
yeah. Let's move and talk about Cade's return a little bit. It made a lot of sense when Robert Brooks was talking about this and says, my note that I have next to Cade 6 is legends never die. Cade had the largest personality of, I think, any character in the saga so far. It's not even a question at this point. Like there are other characters undeniably that have stepped in to fill that void. I think, specifically Saint 14, I think has really stepped in to fill that Cade role in a lot of ways for us.
I'm sorry,
him and Drifter.
drunken Mithrax didn't do it for you?
I love Drunken Mithrax. They've really dialed up the Drifter in the last couple seasons, and I'm here for it.
Yep,
He's
yep.
gotten really sassy since we went pirate hunting. I do love Drifter, but it's like there's still something missing though. There was something magical that Nathan Fillion brought to the table that like really brought the core group of him, Lance Reddick, and Gina Torres together. And we had so much growth with Zavala. From Season of the Worthy onward, Zavala's really it's kind of been him and Crow that have been the driving characters of the seasons. And I'm really excited to get back to like the core group, as they call it. Like, the band is back together, but the note that they said there that really caught my eye, caught my ears, I guess, was that what he goes through what his journey has been, what he goes through in this expansion, and him being our guide is so core to the experience that it was only right that he was there at the end, that he's our guide. So I take that to mean that Cade is probably our destination vendor also, as a way of keeping him in this game.
Someone's got to mark out the new lost sectors here in the Travelosi, so...
I mean, we're getting secret stashes back with the season pass. So, excuse me, the annual pass. We can't call it the season pass anymore. But yeah, I love it, and the callback to the initial teaser trailer. When he tells Ikora, "Well, I'm here now, wherever the hell here is." I just, man, seeing Cade back, it gets all the emotions going. That it's something that I don't think we ever expected to see before that teaser trailer. And so when that happened, people who weren't watching it live thought it was fake. They're like, "What? Cade's back?" And now it's very clear that Ikora is not in fact dead. Ikora is not dead. Burns of all have come through the portal with us. I assume that Keitel and Mithrax are there. The Avengers are in the Travelosi. Okay, we're here. We're partying. But before we can go meet up with Cade, we gotta do some witchcraft. I don't know what I expected from this season, but it was not what they told us. I never would have had tarot cards and the deck of many things on my bucket list of things I would see in Destiny, but here we are. Oh my god, we're on the moon in the throne world, dealing with the threat of Xivu Arath, and it actually kind of makes me wonder if we're going to wrap up the Xivu Arath storyline beforehand.
Kind of seems like it, yeah.
Perhaps she's the dungeon boss next season.
That's kind of what I was thinking, since they always put it out at the beginning of the season, so that would make sense to me. And then you probably like wrap up the Aramis bullshit during the season.
That was my only hesitation, is that, I really hope Xivu Arath, we don't kill her in an end of season mission, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've always maintained that I felt like Savathun and her have to throw down still. And like when we're looking at the 3 episodes that are going to come, Echoes, Revenant, and Heresy. Heresy definitely like has the hive colors. You have a hive sword there. Kind of makes me think that like maybe we're not done with her yet. But they've been adamant that the Light and Dark saga is done with this raid. That's it. So I'm really hoping we wrap her up. But yeah, Eris does a hive ritual, and we start paying tribute to her.
She's becoming the goddamn god of war. That's so cool.
We've we've talked about it in the past. Like what character isn't going to make it to the end, and I think that a lot of us for a long time have felt that Eris's story is coming to an end. She's had the most development of any of the side characters, I think, outside of, Zavala and probably Crow at this point. She's been there for so many key moments, Dark Below, The Taken King, Arrivals, she was there in Beyond Light.
She was there.
There in Shadowkeep, we exercised her demons. She was there for Haunted. She's been there for so many of the biggest character-driven moments and character-driven storylines that if there's somebody that doesn't make it to the final shape, I think at this point you can kind of say it's going to be Eris, just based on what we saw in the trailer. Sacrifices are going to be made. We've already had the death of Amanda. Sloane is slowly being lost to the Taken. There's other sacrifices coming. Whether we like it or not.
I'd imagine Osiris is gonna have one more big moment before the end.
I see. I think Osiris does make it to the end personally, but that's a discussion for another time.
Yeah.
I love that the narrative designers described Eris's idea as a wild ass idea, because that's like the way that I feel like I would phrase something in a note, and they just outright said it.
I mean,
it is.
just looking at the cutscene of what's going on with Eris and like what happened, that to me that was one of the more like shocking moments of the entire thing. Was like, what the hell is going on?
It shows you how far we've come, because the Zavala 5 years ago would not let this go down.
No, the Zavala 3 years ago wouldn't have let it go down. We've talked about it so much, but it really is the moment where Crow saves him is really kind of the turning point for Zavala, I think. And I love that they make the designation in this showcase that, Zavala has kind of gone down this dark path, and Ikora's faith has been shaken in the Traveler and whatnot. Eris going through with this just kind of is like the culmination of all of that, it feels like, in a lot of ways, because Eris is like the one who's like, she's always been willing to do the weird shit. Her and Drifter. I have to think that Uncle Drifter is part of the storyline too here. But, that remains to be seen when we actually get to play it. 2 new activities. We have the Altars of Summoning, which is a 6-person activity, and Savathun's Spire, which is a 3-man enemy dense activity. And, but, kind of exactly like what we just got in Season of the Deep. There's going to be secrets hidden within the Spire to progress it and, to find... I was adamant we're not getting an exotic mission. Maybe we are now. Who knows? But this is the kind of stuff I want to see in like seasons, and if this is training us what to expect from episodes, then I'm here for it.
Yeah, I'm really excited to check out this Spire activity. I really hope it's an evolution of what we loved about deep dives.
I mean,
having a
look at that deck of cards
activity. Yeah, no, I'm so excited to play around with that.
Yeah. There were a lot of them. Like that screen that they showed. There were probably like 8 rows of cards with maybe 7 cards in each row.
Yeah, I would estimate there were probably about 35, 40 cards.
Yeah.
Just wild shit. And like I obviously I didn't get a chance to pause it and like look at the description of some of them, but it does sound really cool. Like there'll be places for you to activate those within the Spire for your bonuses. I like that it's an evolution already of the system we got last season, which was very like roguelike. This also feels like that. This feels very Hades-like to me. And I love that. Hades is one of my favorite games of the last few years. I like the idea of being able to pick my perks before I go in, because eventually you're going to find the optimal strategy, right? And like, these are the ones I want to run with. But half the fun, I think, for like, for all, I think I speak for all of us, we like games like that. We like card-based games, we like strategy-based games, and I think there's an inherent strategy to a system like that in a first-person shooter.
Oh yeah, and it leans itself very well to the seasonal model, because I mean, roguelikes are inherently infinitely playable, right? Taking some of those cues is awesome. Obviously, I don't want to see what they did after Menagerie, where every single season we have a little mini roguelike, but it's a very interesting way to shake things up.
No, I do think with 6 months to go in the year, though, with the seasons, how they're going to play out, this is a good thing to introduce now, because you'll have it just long enough that it still feels fresh, and then you can take it away. Like, there's nothing that says that this system can't work with next season also.
Yeah.
So I do think that's important to note. Same with the deep dives. It's like, oh, well, these are cool systems. Like they've always said that they like to use seasonal activities to kind of play around with ideas for the future. And there's nothing that says that we can't see these in like regular activities going forward, right? Why
Yeah.
should they just be tied to seasonal activities? Like, what if you had a raid where you could pick perks? I mean, that would be such a cool idea.
Or even a new, I don't want to get my hopes up too high, but a new core activity that's
Yeah.
somewhere between a
Well,
roguelite and a horde mode, or just
didn't we kind of have that as the original like Nightfall system at the very beginning of Destiny 2 kind of gave you the ability to choose what perks you wanted to go into it with. I don't know if you guys remember that. Might have been before you guys kind of really got back into the game.
no.
But
That
I
was
played Destiny 2, but that was 7 years and a lot of alcohol ago.
and that was more
either
about adjusting your difficulty to get a higher score.
Yeah.
right,
I understand your point though, Bruce, but
either
yeah,
way, no, either way, I'm all on board for adding being able to add different perks and add
Yeah.
interesting twists to each, make it different each time you go
Anything that
in.
makes it feel fresh, I think.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
And then, of course, we can't get out of here without talking about, what are the longer term things coming to it. First of all, Crota's End is returning. I'm not going to say that I love Crota's End. I want to start with that. Crota's End has a lot of very fond raiding memories. That's really where I fell in love with raiding, was Crota's End. Every Tuesday I was running it at Reset in a 3 or 4 man group. I was really hoping they would address more, because in the past Joe Blackburn himself has said, like, yeah, we'd have to like basically rebuild the whole thing
He
to make
did
it up
use the
to.
word brutal when he described it.
I
He
mean,
said
they've also used
brutal
that
Crota's End.
I feel like they've used that description for things like Root of Nightmares, though, and
I don't know.
I
I
I
think they
hope that
did
it's
hear
brutal.
the clapback from the rating
Yeah.
community on Root of Nightmares, and I do think that if they just put Crota's End in without doing significant changes, that it's not going to be a good thing. So
I mean, it was soloable in Destiny 1, which is an easier game already than D2.
right, yeah, I think the
So
bar's got to be significantly raised this time around. I
I'm
just
excited to see what changes. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't bummed out about Wrath of the Machine not coming back, but that all but confirms that's probably the 10th. I mean, I would say all but confirms. I was dead set until like 2 months ago that it was going to be the raid this year. This does make sense. They said in the past they want things that come back to be tied thematically to the season.
mhm,
And this makes
yeah.
sense. We've got a hive season. We're on the moon, things like that. It makes sense. Wrath of the Machine, I guess, does kind of make sense. Like if you're going to go and explore things that are happening outside the Light and Dark saga, Rise of Iron was kind of one of those things that was just there. To bring something back from that probably does make sense to do for like an anniversary pack or like next year sometime. So my dream of completing that raid will have to hold off for another year.
can we talk about the armor that they showed? For this raid?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That is
Jump on in. Jump in, John.
that is the fancy Moments of Triumph ornaments. Correct.
It looks
With
like
the
it.
big glowy
Yeah.
hive spikes all over the armor. That's absolutely the Moments of Triumph armor.
Yeah, I'm checking real fast. Yeah, it is. It is in fact that armor. Yep. And that's good because the normal Crota armor is bland as all hell. And we've had a very similar set to that armor already. Just the Ghost of the Deep armor is that, but like significantly better.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm okay with this. This does make me hope that over the next year we'll get the ornaments added for King's Fall and Vault of Glass. I think that's an easy layup for brownie points from the community to give us that stuff. And I do think like that gives you a reason to go back in and do those raids again. Like I suspect if they do it with Vault, it would coincide with craftable weapons, for example.
Yeah, that would be a easy home run there.
Easy home run. And then, I mean, beyond that, we've got some quality of life updates, and I think we're all happy about these updates. Activities are going to be certain activities will be power fixed, but it really sounds like the grind is all but gone. The power grind is basically gone at this point. if you play religiously, you're going to hit it anyways, so like the three of us, there's not going to be a problem, but it does make it a lot easier for us to take people who maybe took a season or two off. For example, our friend Phil has been known to take a few seasons off. Our buddy Ray usually isn't up to power level, and they want to do these end game activities without having to kill themselves. We can now take them in there. We just have to. It's just a matter of getting the gun now, right?
Yeah, I think this is a win, to be honest. It has been. I mean, them not raising the power level last season, and I can't remember if it was the season before that. I don't remember which was the first one. Has been, I think, universally like well received, and sort of simplifying that and moving forward without fully removing it, because you do still want to reward the people who do kind of want to push the envelope and try to be
Right.
at the top of the game, but removing all of the barriers to entry for especially newer players who want to just do like base level raids, I think it's fantastic and a home run.
Yeah, I think this is a home run, and tying this in with the new LFG system is a big home run too. I think we've all been wondering, why is the LFG system not ready? Why did they pushed it back so much? And now it's pretty clear they want to push it back to like tie it as closely as possible to this. Like this system probably is what wasn't ready to go, and they just said, like, fuck it, we'll introduce LFG a season before. We don't want to introduce it alongside a raid, which is a smart idea in all fairness. But I like what they said about, you can bring your friends in regardless of power level. Fire team power is a thing. So like, even if like people are like a couple like hairs too low, like for example, say a grandmaster, like someone's just having a real hard time getting those last couple artifact levels, now they can be fire team level, right?
Yeah, which is awesome. I've definitely had like Max, who works 6 days a week through the summer, want to jump in and do a couple GMs with us, and he'd have to spend every waking hour of a weekend just to grind out 2 artifact levels just so he could join us in the activity. That feels
right.
bad.
Yeah, I like that. The inclusion tags is another thing that I really like. They're really trying to make this as inclusive of a game as possible. When they talked about the colorblind, they used that as an example. I was like, well, hey, if John didn't have a huge group of people to play with, that'd be a perfect feature for you.
Yeah.
But I liked that, and like just reading over some of those like real quickly, like, hey, I just really want to be chill. I don't want this to be I don't want to play with sweat lords. Things like that like really made me laugh, because like we forget sometimes, I think, that the developers play this game all the time. They play this game too, so they're making the experience that they would want in an LFG. And we've come so far from web pages in Destiny 1 and the crappy app in Destiny 2 to like to the point where most of us, I think, that weren't on PlayStation were using the built-in Xbox LFG. And it's just such a relief that this is going to be in game now. You can do it according to fire team level, and like it's going to it's going to work along with the power levels. I really enjoyed seeing all that. The other big quality of life change that we're getting is the timeline. This is not what I expected the timeline to be, but it's better than what I expected. I expected it just to be a bunch of cutscenes you could watch in the timeline section. Instead, they're going to have key missions from these expansions that you can play through for key moments in Destiny, so that if you're brand new, you can just jump right in and play them. Awesome. I can't wait to play. I can't wait to play Cade's Last Standing. I feel like this has to be the first step towards we're going to make all the content available once we're off last gen. Like if I was gonna say the one thing that disappointed me out, I know we've got one more thing to get to, but my one big disappointment was they did not address leaving last gen behind. And it's something that just kind of desperately needs to happen at this point for the health of the game. I cannot imagine you trying to play this game at 30 frames right now.
Leave the Xbox One alone, Josh.
Listen, for consoles that were developed on 2012 technology, they need to be left behind at this point. Like the PS4, like launch PS4s and Xbox Ones have to sound like they're being cleared by the FAA.
Eventually, all the PS4s are going to explode, and the problem will solve itself.
That's true. You're not wrong on that one. I would say that was like my big disappointment, like takeaway, I think, and like I'm making it sound like a bigger deal than it is, but this is traditionally where they talk about like, platform inclusion and, what our plans are. Like last year they addressed it at the showcase and, kind of give people a warning. I would have really liked if they came out and said, hey, and I imagine pricing would have been really wacky on this, but like said, hey, you can play the final shape on last gen, but if you want to experience the episodes, you got to upgrade. You got to get a current console, or God forbid, better video card. I know PCs are definitely a
Whoa!
bit of
The
a
video
weirder
cards are
area.
expensive.
Yeah, so are consoles. I digress. Let's talk episodes real quick, and then let's all get out of here. We all want to go. I think we all want to edit and go play.
I'm still
Episodes.
sitting in queue. We can talk as long as you want, Josh.
Episodes are going to be 3 larger seasons a year, and the first 3 are going to be titled Echoes, Revenant, and Heresy, in that order. Echoes is going to start in March. Revenant will start in July, and Heresy will start in November. And it's going to be 3 acts to an episode, and an act is going to come out every 6 weeks. And I think that's the perfect amount. You can get in, you can do your story stuff for the act, you can dip and play other things, and then you can come right back for the next act.
Yeah,
and these are standalone stories to play as well.
Yeah, I really hope they nail this, because that is also, to me, what feels bad about the seasonal model is once you get through the first 6 weeks, it's kind of like, okay, you have a seasonal event and 2 more Iron Banners. That's what you got to look forward to, and then maybe a cutscene right at the end of the season.
Yeah, and I think like all of us would rather have that than the artificially padded like 10-week stories that we were getting. And like, as good as Chosen and Splicer were, that's one of the big takeaways. I think we're, God forbid, Lost, where we had to wait 4 months for the last installment of the story.
Yeah, that was the wildest one. Why they
that
didn't
was
just
that was by far the worst. By far the worst.
They should have just capped it and give us the 30th anniversary to play around with, and everyone would understand, hey, it got delayed, this is what it is. But anyways,
yeah, and then we digress. We've all learned lessons from this.
Yeah.
I like what they talk about, though, that they want to make this a more cinematic experience than before. They're planning for this whole next year to have more in-game cutscenes and things like that. They kind of tease some of them. It looks like we're going to get a hand-drawn Cade one at some point. And then the standalone stories, you can play them in any order. But what really hit home with me that they said was more weapons, more loot, more often, and they want to provide a foundation for the future. They say on the website here, each episode will contain new story content and rewards, including a new exotic mission, exotic weapons, and armor. Episodes will be split into 3 acts, with a new act every 6 weeks containing new stories, quests, activities, weapons, artifact mods, pass ranks, and rewards. That's pretty thrilling for me. Like, if you're going to include all that and it really can deliver, I'd rather have that than have like 1 or 2 half-baked seasons a year and 2 really good ones. I would rather have higher quality and less frequency.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yeah, I've always felt the season that comes along, the expansion, like even like Risen was great, but it ultimately was maybe 40 minutes of story.
Risen was great because it led out of that first mission, and that was something unique that they haven't been able to replicate.
Yeah. But I feel like this is a good compromise of going back to mini expansions over seasons. Yeah. It's somewhere in the middle, and I hope they can deliver some good shit with this model.
This does feel like something that'll be sold indefinitely too, if they're going to be standalone stories.
The thing that's kind of exciting with this is that they don't have to tie everything back into some bigger story. Like, they have a lot more freedom to kind of dive deep into these little individual probably character-driven stories, that they don't have to say, okay, well, this character's doing this, but then this character also has to do this because they're doing this arc in the bigger story of Light and Dark. So I think it'll give them a lot more freedom to really explore some different types of storytelling, which they've gotten really good at in the last 2 years.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if we got another one of these passes next year. As well, instead of a big expansion, for them to be like, hey, we're gonna kind of hold the line, because they've got a whole plan here straight up through next February with these. Heresy's gonna end in February. It would not shock me to see them say, hey, we're gonna release 3 more of these stories because we're busy working on the next big expansion. But like, I personally thought, and a lot of people in the Discord thought, we were gonna get a title card for what was next. I almost prefer this to keep the mystery of what's coming. They clearly want all focus on the final shape and not us speculating about 2-3 years from now.
Yeah.
Guys, I think that's better. Oh, we have to talk about the collector's edition. That's the final thing. We can't get out of here without talking about this.
Did you get
Before we
it?
went, I did get it. I was ordering it. In fact, as we were starting to talk about the Pale Heart, I was typing in credit card information while steering a conversation. I love this thing. This looks so cool. It is the Destiny 1 tower. There's no other way to say it. This is so cool. It's the D1 tower, and it comes with little mini Cade, Ikora, and Zavalas that you can put in there. There's of course some physical books there, one of which you can make out has the Elixni symbol on it. Another one has the tree from the courtyard, the tree of heroes over there by Zavala. That's feels a little ominous. Still cool. There's a couple of other things. The description for this says, as preparations for the conflict with the Witness are mobilized, the citizens of the last city brace for the climactic battle. Meanwhile, Ido scours the solar system looking for clues, messages, and intel on the origins of the Witness to share with Guardians. During her travel, she's also found a gift to honor your service, a light to accompany the darkness. This is pretty cool. There's a book that is it looks like it's messages from, it's like an autograph book almost, but it's like messages from characters throughout the universe, whether we've met them or not. The sample page they give us has Chalco Young on it, and a bunch of symbols of the hidden scribbled on the page next to it. And then of course Ido's dossier, whatever you want to call it, we get a little image of that. Includes a tower replica featuring LED lights and sounds. They tease that there's going to be some hidden secrets in it, kind of like a mystery box. The Vanguard figurines, the dossier, a Vanguard mission patch, the Final Shape original soundtrack. And Ido mentions that there are messages of hope, inspiration, and wisdom that can be discovered throughout thorough examination of the tower replica and its accessories. There's also, of course, a ticket to the ramen shop, it looks like.
Worth it right there.
We can't leave this behind without the ramen shop. This looks like a really fitting final collector's edition for this saga. But gentlemen, I think that's it. Do we have any final thoughts on this showcase, on where we're going, where we're going to end up at?
I'm excited to see what these next two seasons bring.
Yeah.
They said the last two were very much supposed to be like an epilogue for Lightfall, and these two are going to be leading up to Final Shape. And I'm just excited to see where the story goes.
100%.
Yeah, in a similar vein to what Johnny said, I think we're in a really interesting place in kind of the Destiny timeline right now, with the way the community feels about the game and kind of how things are going moving forward. And I think the next two seasons will really be critical in kind of the success of Final Shape and kind of community outlook moving forward. And for me, especially, like whether or not I move forward kind of into the next chapter of the game. So I'm excited, but also, going to be patient and wait and see.
Yeah, I kind of echo both of you because Nerd, you and I have talked a lot about that. This kind of feels like an ending point for a lot of us that have been playing for 10 years. We hear content creators all the time be like, "Well, this is make or break for Destiny," and I don't necessarily think that that's a thing. I think that's still going to have an audience no matter what. But I do think that if you were to jump off, this is probably the point to do it because you're at the end of the original saga. You're not getting swept up into another story. You got the episodes there to determine if you want to continue on in this world or you just want to watch, like Bife and Mylan lore videos. I think
some of you better stick around because I need someone to pick up these axes with me.
I'm very curious to see how this expansion goes because I'm in it until at least the Final Shape. I want to see how this plays out. And I don't want to be like one of those people like, oh, well, I didn't enjoy Lightfall, so Final Shape's not good. I'm gone. Like my playtime is going to get reduced. I mean, just that's the reality of not being 20 anymore. is that I'm not playing Destiny all night. Like, I'm not even in my mid-20s anymore. I'm in my early 30s. Like there are other things that demand attention and that you want to spend with your hobbies. We were talking earlier about how like just the last like 10 weeks alone has given us Zelda, Remnant, Diablo, Final Fantasy, Baldur's Gate 3. This week we're getting Armored Core. Next week is Starfield. We've got things like Lies of P and Spider-Man coming up, and all these other games. And it's like, how do you there is not enough time to enjoy everything. Like, Phil and I have been joking, we're running through trying to finish all our season passes this week. So we had a Destiny season ending, we have a Fortnite season ending, a mini pass in Fortnite, and 76. He's a big 76 player. Like, and everything hit on the same day. How do you possibly make the time for that? And like, eventually something has to give. And Destiny for me is like the last like bastion of like a live service game. Like, I don't want it to be the thing that I give up. Like, it's my hobby game. It's where I play with my friends, I hang out with my friends, and I'm excited to see where the story goes. It's just, how long am I going to be here past the next year of content that I'm paying for up front, right? So if we don't have any more final thoughts, I'm going to go ahead and get us on out of here. Of course, we'll be back on Thursday. Corey and I will. We'll get Corey's thoughts on the showcase. We're going to share some of the things y'all were hoping to see. I meant to get to that today, but we've already gone on more than long enough for this reaction. We're going to cover that. We're going to dive into some lore, dive into the beginning of the season. I want to thank Nerd and Johnnny for joining me as always. This has become a yearly tradition, and I'm really looking forward to reuniting for the 10th anniversary next year.
Hell yeah.
It's the one time a year I feel like all three of us get together.
I think Johnnny and I need to just get in and duke it out and Gambit at some point before they completely, turn off the Gambit servers forever.
I mean, this is the Vanguard, though. We've got a Warlock, we've got a Titan, we've got a Hunter. So this is this is my fire team as far as I'm concerned. So, guys, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to join me for this. And everyone else, we will see you Starside, casting spells and playing with the deck of many things.
Bungie, let me in the game.